Yo, over on my live stream, I've been playing some Poison Spark Pathfinder. I've been doing Ruse version, abusing a lot of projectile speed, tattoos, having your flask duration all set up, right? So you can cap your res off of your triple Ellie flask setup and have 100% uptime on those. It was pretty fun for Sanctum. I'm doing some invitation farms right now. So this is going to be kind of like a build overview. It's not going to be like a full build guide. I just kind of wanted to get a video out and talk about the build, help people set this up, you know, how much it costs, answer some questions, etc. Maxroll also has a Poison Spark setup for a super juicy endgame, kind of like much more defensive Poison Spark playstyle, especially for just like, you know, just bossing and standing still. It's abusing stuff like Progenesis, a lot of like life on hit. It's really, really juicy stuff. So this is kind of like a nice super budget version with lots of proj speed for kind of just blasting Sanctum. That one would be a little more focused on, you know, just being a nice beefster. Let's start with what the content I've been farming is on Poison Spark and why I made the character originally. Well, I wanted to have a nice, fun, and fast Sanctum runner. I wanted a nice Sanctum spammer. And I never played Spark before, so I figured now would be a great time. Poison Spark seems pretty good. I loved the POB. I liked all the proj speed tattoos. It made it seem like it was going to be great. And you know what? It was. It was a lot of fun playing Sanctum with this build. You get a lot of proj speed tattoos. You're getting the more proj speed. You've got some skill effect duration, a little bit, right? We've got like 5%, 5%. And then you have some from your alternate quality efficacy. And all of this together, along with Spell Echo, means you're starting to just fill rooms with sparks. And it's really nice. The one problem, though, is that the poison duration and temp chains and everything, while we have lots and lots of damage, right, like 20 million plus, it takes time to hit that point. And so to make the damage feel a lot better, to make it a lot faster, a little snappier, or something like Sanctum, and what I would recommend if you're doing Sanctum as well, is to get a Brutal Restraint that has poisons you inflict faster on it. So I got 20% here. You get another 20% by choosing it as a Poison Mastery. You can get 5% by getting Wasting Affliction, and then you can go ahead and anoint Dirty Techniques for another 15. We've got 20 on the Jewels, then 20 from the Mastery, so we're at 40, and then we have another 15 and 5 from our Medium and Anointment. So we have 60% faster poisons, and I found at that point, I didn't really need to squeeze anything else out of it. It just felt a lot better having all that faster poison instead of just a Mastery. Also, I have like a Despair on hit Ass, which was pretty nice. Just to squeeze out a little bit more damage while you're clearing those Sanctums is really nice. But yeah, I had a absolute blast farming Sanctums. I think it's a fun Sanctum farmer. I don't think it's the best, especially if you were looking for no-hit runs. You know, the best is always just going to be Mage Blood, Tornado Shot, and 300 Divines or something, right? Like, it's going to be really hard to beat. But as far as the budget for this, I think it was really fun. And you could take this into a lot of other content like I'm doing right now. We're spamming lots of formed invitations. This is a great build for that, as you have a circular arena and you could just sit there, spam all of your sparks. The bosses spawn. You know, it's no big deal. I'm kind of just standing in the middle most of the time. I'll do an occasional flame dash, you know, if Phoenix is doing that big explosion move. We did twisted invitations. We're just going through and doing all the invitation farming. So it's a really fun build for that. But let's talk about a little more in depth into it. You know, the budget, what the gearing actually is, aside from just, you know, proj speed on tree, etc. So the budget is somewhere around 80 to 90 divines to get the very nice high damage version. That means you're having like nice crafted gear, which Rue has the crafting notes in his POB. It's actually pretty simple, most of it. And you can do budget versions, which is why I have like a little bit of a range there. But a lot of the cost is going to be getting a really good ashes that has, and really good really just means quality. Because the whole point of this build is Phantasmal Spark. This is how you're a lightning spark build, but poisoning. It gets all converted to chaos damage. Now, what you can do to save just a little bit is you can buy a level 20 with 23 quality, and you see it has 46% of lightning converted to chaos because of that extra 3 quality. So now you can get a little bit less quality of gems on your ashes, which saves you a little bit of currency. Because otherwise, all you need is just Phantasmal Spark. And on your ashes, you have to have that 30 quality unless you get a 23 quality, which are pretty cheap right now. That's like one little thing that some people get to do. But a lot of the cost for the build is just all the alt quality gems, right? It's very, very, very heavy on alt qualities to make everything work. We have Divergent Inspiration here, which is like 3 point something divines. You've got leveled up Awakened gems. Those aren't too bad. You know, Anomalous Spell Echo wasn't really a super, super expensive alt quality. Anomalous Efficacy, but it, you know, it all adds up when you've got like 3 divines here. For your haste setup, you may not need it, depending on your stuff. I know for some setups, you didn't need Divergent Inspiration in your haste setup, depending on how much mana you have left unreserved. And so this could be like a little spot where you save some divines, but you know, Anomalous, increased duration, you know, this gem, it's really good. You need it for the haste setup, and it's like 6 div, right? It all adds up, and it keeps adding up because of all the alt qualities. The gear itself is not that expensive. Even like a +2 Dendrobate, you can scoop one of these unlinked for 30 to 80 chaos, something like that. And then you can link it in 3 to 4 div, right? Just getting +2 on your Dendrobate, it's really huge, and it's a lot of damage, and that's really not even like any cost to the build at all. Right now, Spark enchants are a little expensive. I got very lucky and got a Fractured Base here. But, you know, things like the rings are pretty easy. What I did is, instead of getting life on hit, which is a Crusader prefix on your ring, and it's really not that hard to get since you can lock your suffixes, get good suffixes on your ring, and then you do a Crusader slam, and you try to get that life on hit with spells. But if you don't get that, you can really easily just lock suffixes, right? You craft, suffixes can't be changed, you reforge caster, and it's going to be guaranteed. And so you just do that, hope your prefixes don't fill, and that you get like T1. What I did instead, though, just to make my life a little bit easier, is that I just scooped up a Watcher Eye with the life on hit vitality. I got really lucky, and I found one that had evade while affected by grace. If you're doing stuff like Sanctum, that's not really needed. You can just go with the life on hit, which is really, really nice. So as far as like everything, you know, the weapon, the shield, they're pretty easy to craft if you just follow along with the notes. I don't even have my shield done all the way, but you could make like a budget version of this. So just to quickly talk about the crafts, this scepter right here, it's really easy. You're just spamming whatever essence is the flat lightning damage to spells until you hit +1 lightning. Then you lock prefixes and you do an ashling. And if it's a suffix, you block something, try to unveil chaos.multi. If you get a veiled prefix, then you just you just YOLO and hope that you get lightning damage or something else that's really nice for Spark. And then you can just multi-mod. It's like super, super simple. This one's a little tricky, but you're just greed essencing into T4 plus lightning damage because it's really low weighting. So I would do like T3-ish, you know, if you wanted to not feel so bad about settling. And then you just lock prefix, augment lightning, and then the fun part is the Redeemer Slam, and you pray that you hit +2 frenzies. Otherwise, you can reforge influence for it. Or at that point, if you need some budget stuff, you could just multi-mod for curse effect and cast speed. Right? There's like budget versions, you know, that you can kind of like skimp by on with you know, with a little foresight and a little planning. But what you cannot skimp on, and what's really important about this build, is how reliant it is on flasks and getting the exact amount of flask duration. So everything is set up to be perfect. And so a big pitfall is missing something like this tattoo right here with the flask effect duration. You need this little tattoo that 6% actually takes you over the edge. And you also need tier 1 with a low roll of reduced duration on your flasks. You need it to be 23 or 24 on your ruby and topaz. You need that increase effect, and you need the reduced duration to be tier 1 and 23 or 24. It's really important that you have that, and then you do your crafts on there. And that increase effect is going to allow you to cast stuff like your haste, which costs no mana because of how much flask effect you have, how good all that stuff is. You know, you've got all the flask effect in the world. You're gaining charges. You have 100% uptime on all this. So you need that to be able to cast your haste, and you need that to allow your spark to have 1 or 2 mana cost. And it has to be 1 or 2 mana costs because we're using inspiration. Inspiration's really nice because of 2 reasons, right? It helps us solve our mana so we don't have to be Eldritch Battery, which is what a lot of builds do. So instead you can go Ghost Dance. And we've got like an extra nice guard skill type mechanic where every time we get hit, we get 700 energy shield back as long as we have our Ghost Shroud stuff. And that's really nice because we don't have a really good guard skill on the build. This build doesn't run Determination. It opts more for just a lot of fizz shift And especially if you're going to do mapping content or you feel you want some extra survivability, you can opt, instead of a damage shield like this, originally you can do Dawnbreaker. And I don't know where I put my Dawnbreaker right now, but Dawnbreaker is the Searing Exarch shield, this one right here. But you would get a physical damage taken as fire. You would get that to be 20%, right? It's a 10 to 20 roll, so you want it to be 19 or 20. You can get a corruption on these for an extra like 7%. Or you can opt for other corruptions. But other corruptions, you know, you could get plus levels to auras. There's a ton of different things. I think just getting another fizz taken as elemental damage or getting reduced extra crit is a pretty nice one to get on your Dawnbreaker. But I'm opting for damage just because I want to kill my invitations faster. And, you know, I don't feel like I really need that extra survival. But yeah, we're not running Determ. So, you know, on Pathfinder, you have all this Flask effect here. Your helmet, it's going to have 6 fizz taken as lightning or more if you upgrade the implicit. And I'm supposed to have Corral here as well. But again, I didn't get my Corral yet. Okay, I'll buy it and I'll do the craft. But I like the Pierce right now while I'm mapping. So it's all good. One other really important thing for your flasks, I've seen this when I've reviewed a few POBs. You want to have the cast speed roll on your silver flask. Because if you've been paying attention, the silver flask doesn't actually have 100% uptime. Even with this charge recovery, which you also need at tier 1 to have as much uptime as you possibly can. Since silver flask takes 40 charges out of 60 and lasts 7 seconds, but quicksilver takes 30 out of 60 and lasts the same amount, your quicksilver will be up all the time, but your silver flask will be up like 80 something % of the time. And so you don't want to put on your silver flask the reduced mana cost. You don't want to put the regenerate life. You don't want the evasion rating there. The cast speed is okay if it's not up all the time. It's a damage loss, but it's much better than not being able to cast your abilities, not evading attacks, and not regenerating your life. One other really important thing, I didn't opt for Leech on the build because I was focusing more for Sanctum, and Sanctum is really easy to not die in, especially even on the last boss. You don't really need like anything other than like a moderate amount of defenses to get through Sanctum without dying, right? There's not a lot of super rippy bosses, even if you're doing Balance of Terror runs, you know, with Lycia doing more damage. It's a pretty free, but you guys should get Leech if you're trying to do this build. You've got the Regenerate Life. You'll have Life on hit, either on a Vitality Watcher or on your ring prefixes. And then you want that Leech there as well for more recovery, just to round it out, right? It'll feel a lot better like that. But as far as flasks are concerned, back to flasks, the last important thing you need is to get a flask charge gained at tier 1. Now, you need that on your belt, and you want flask effect as well, as it'll help you cap your res out, and you need that flask effect there to boost the reduced mana cost. It's all about hitting these breakpoints. So the belt is really important, and it gets a little bit tight. You kind of have to buy a belt like this. You know, you could probably ROG something, but crafting a belt like this is a little bit tricky since you need a flask mod suffix and a flask mod prefix, and you can't really like target those with anything. So you're kind of just like rolling. You can do it on, you know, like just fracturing and just like rolling with whatever, and then maybe you could like reforge a chaos and get a lesser chaos res roll, something like that. But it's a lot easier to just buy belts like these. So, you know, exchange some stats. Maybe instead of chaos res, you get chaos res, you know, up on your helmet, and then you get a lightning res down here. It's going to be a lot of finagling and a lot of changing of your gear to make everything fit. Other than that, we've got ailment immunity from Ancestral Vision, and then just getting the avoid elemental ailment bootcraft, right? So Ancestral Vision gives you ailment avoidance based on your spell suppression. You get 100 spell suppression, you've got 50 there, and then you get like 20 something. I think I did the screaming on my boots, so you get like 20 something there, and then you get the rest from this thick skin cluster right there, which is really nice. Another big thing of the build is its heavy reliance on evasion. Evasion is its like biggest defense layer, and it actually hits the 95% evade cap. And I got a couple questions on stream of like, you know, how you get there and why exactly we're using something like Dread Banner linked to Generosity. Well, with Dread Banner, you have nearby enemies have 22 less accuracy. And so that's kind of like a pseudo increase of your evasion rating. If they're less accurate, then it means your evasion rating works better against them. So it gives you a higher evade chance. And so when you link that to generosity, it gets another level, and it gets a 44% increase effect against enemies. And that's really, really big. You can also get this to be anomalous. So now the nearby enemies are dealing 5% less damage, which is then boosted by all of your aura effect. And so now you're not only reducing their accuracy, but you're also making them deal less damage because of your ashes boosting and the generosity giving so much aura effect. And if you're doing a proper map setup, you'll replace your brutal restraint with the poisons faster with 2 aura effects, or an aura effect and an increased evasion rating on one of these. And if you need help with that, you just Google how to find a good timeless jewel. But that will allow you to hit the 95% evade cap. And that allows us to use Wind Dancer to take less attack damage, which is really, really nice. Since you have 95 evasion chance, you actually get to use Wind Dancer, and it's really good because it's taking 20 attacks on average to hit you after you get hit that first time, right? Evasion has like a weird thing where it's not 95 for the first hit, but it will be for all the other hits, right? You can look it up on the wiki to completely understand it, or you could just trust me, okay? Aside from that, it's some pretty generic spark stuff, especially as far as poison builds go with ashes. You've got Divergent Plague Bearer, which gives you a lot of dot multi for poisons while you've got that active. You link that to enhance. Same with your Anomalous Blood and Stone, which gives you 66 proj speed while in Sand Stance, which is crazy. That combined with all the proj speed on the tree, a lot of cast speed from Silver Flask and Anomalous Spell Echo and everything, it just allows for so many sparks out. You know, we're running Grace, Divergent Herald of Agony, and a Divergent Malevolence for extra skill effect duration, and then you just need an Enlighten 3 for that. Again, it's just the blessing setup for your haste, and then just a generic shield charge, faster attack. You have Steel Skin for left mouse button, and then I'm running Vitality here, but you would run something different if you don't have that Vitality Watcher Eye. Another huge boost in damage, which I'm not taking advantage of just because I have the damage shield and I feel like my damage is enough and I'd like to be brain off. Another really big thing you do for damage on this build is linking that enhance to an Anomalous Despair. And that's what you're kind of like almost subbing out with the Vitality or your Steel Skin. You've got to remove, you know, to fit that Vitality in, you've got to take out something, and I have my Despair on hit, so that's the choice that I made. This was good, and I did swap this in anytime I did Lycia. I would just have like another pair of Asenath gloves with the setup, and I just swap them in with the gems and whatnot. But this is an incredible amount of damage when you combine it with Ashes of the Star and your level 3 enhance. Cursed enemies take 10% increased damage from damage over time. So that's at 20% quality. This gets boosted again, so they're taking another 15 increase, and then it gets boosted by enhance again, which is almost another 10. So this gem alone gives you like 70% damage, you know, instead of the Asenaths giving you just a generic level 1 despair, which I think removes like 15 chaos res or something. Right, then you've got your level 20 with an alt quality boosted to hell with all that quality. Dude, it's such an incredible amount of damage. If you are doing just like a normal boss, you have to use this Anomalous Despair setup. It's insane. It's just not something I opt to do because I'm a lazy bastard. Because I just can't be asked. One last thing that you can do, which is really nice, is to just pick up a large cluster that has a Unspeakable Gifts node. If you're doing any kind of like mapping, juice mapping, etc. This is really, really nice to just add that extra explode chance, even though we have our Asenath explosion and even though we have our poison prolif. This is really nice, and it sounds cool. All right, you get the occultist pop sound, and it is a big explosion, which means it'll be a big poison, which will help you kind of proliferate your poisons, explosions, etc. It's always nice to have multiple explode effects, especially when one of them is like really big. It's just really, really nice. So I would recommend that if you're doing like anything in Delirium, you know, anything with Beyond, just big juicy stuff. The last thing you need to make sure you do is make sure you have 300 dex and 150 intelligence for your Dendrobate. That's the last pitfall I've seen people fall into, and it's really bad. You got to read your stuff. You got to make sure you have the correct stats, or you're just going to miss out on a lot of poison damage and a lot of poison duration. Anyways, that's Poison Spark. I've been having an absolute blast with the build. I'm going to be doing more invitations with it, blasting more content, enjoying this kind of like fill the room spark play style. This is the Void Spark MTX, by the way. I love it. Tanks the bitrate, you know, makes my stream look bad. Probably tanks the quality of the video here, but it's just really fun to have a Spark build that fills the entire room with your low Spark projectiles. I love it. Anyways, like, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the live stream, and bye.